So, I think it's time to move on with the program and invite the first speaker on stage. Let's have Yrjö Norokorpi, Dr. Yrjö Norokorpi. Welcome to the event here. And so it would be nice to know that what kind of forest man are you?
Good morning. Yes, I was born in a countryside close to a forest. And the forest has been always very important environment for me, even my work over 40 years. And nowadays, I think I have visited a forest every day. I have moved from Lapland to southern Finland, close to my children's families, but I still love Lapland and large forest areas.
How long did you spend in Lapland?
Actually, I was there 51 years.
Wow. Wow. Okay, without further ado, let's do so that you take the stage and let's have your presenters up and running, and I'll move away and let's listen to what Yrjö has to say. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm Doctor of Forest Sciences, and I have spent my entire career in Lapland for more than 40 years as a researcher at the Forest Research Institute, specializing in forest ecology, silvicultural methods, forest damage, and timberline for issues. We started continuous cover forestry studies more than 40 years ago. Before retiring, I worked as the head of Nature and Culture Conservation Affairs in Natural Heritage Services or Metsähallitus. Here you see the title of my presentation, Ecology and Management of the Arctic Forests. And the content is seen here. At first, the terms and concepts. The two main methods of silviculture are rotation forestry and continuous cover forestry, CCF. Clear-cut cultivation and evenage management by low thinning belong to rotation forestry. Continuous cover forestry means no clear-cut. Natural regeneration, unevenaged management by high thinning. The Arctic forests are defined here as forests north of the Arctic Circle. However, the forests in this area are a vital resource as timber and fuel wood, game, fish, berries, recreation, tourism, and reindeer pasture. The forest management could fulfill these requirements also when climate change is progressing. The answer to the challenge is continuous cover forestry. The northernmost part of the timberline forests in Finland is called Forest Lapland. Fell Lapland is north of it. These areas belong to the Sami homeland, Sapmi. The forests shall be managed and utilized with special care for preventing the retreat of the timberline. The coniferous timberline is located at its highest point on the southern edge of Saariselkä, at an average altitude of 500 meters. From there, the forest timberline goes down both to the north and south. In the north, it's located where the average temperature sum is around 600 dD. To the south, it's regulated by wind factors, locating approximately 150 meters above the ground snow load limit. Sodankylä is located about 200 kilometers south of the polar forest timberline. The temperature sum is increasing, but at times it can be equal to the average at the forest timberline. The variation between growing seasons is becoming more extreme. Forest ecosystems are sensitive and fragile to disturbances. According to the tree ring index, the mean temperature of a growing season has varied strongly during 1,000 years. After cold summers, the annual increment has decreased and many trees have died. A good seed harvest can be expected for pine only after the relatively warm growing season. Such periods have occurred in northern Lapland in 20th century every 10 to 15 years. Forest stands create ecological conditions more favorable for trees and other biota to survive and grow. The vegetation structure and microclimate gradients make an ecosystem in which vertical stratification provides niches for many species. Dry periods can prevent the seed from germinating and hinder the development of seedlings. It is important that the seed year is followed by 3 or 4 favorable years. Clear-cut changes microclimate conditions very strongly. The wind and air mixing movement and the solar radiation intensify. The temperature and its variation increase and the humidity decrease, making forest regeneration more difficult. The wind reaches its maximum speed when the distance to the forest edge increases 20-30 times greater than the height of the edge forest. When a diameter of opening is equal to the height at the forest stand's edge, the microclimate prevails. Large seed tree felling is equal to clear-cut and exposed to storm damage. Especially dry and barren sites are difficult to regenerate because microclimate conditions change very extreme and the mycorrhiza fungi die. I give an example how to recover a dry, barren and acidic site after unsuccessful seed tree cutting. This area had been open over 50 years. Seedlings were dying below 1 meter. Some plots were fenced and broadcast seeded with birch. Recovery has started when reindeer lichen covered the site and birch seedlings began to produce leaf litter. The forest stand in the background, as you see, using CCF has regenerated and grown well. Then felling methods. CCF utilizes the natural dynamics and structure of a forest stand. All methods that do not involve clear cutting and planting. Flexible application even in the same stand according the stand structure and the goal of the forest owner. The main method is high thinning of log trees, but not all of them. Selective cuttings are possible. Small openings are maximum 2 to 3 areas only. Here you see a forest stand before and after CCF high thinning. Mature log trees are removed and more space created for younger and smaller trees with good value growth. In the figure you see stem diameter, logging value and yield percentage when releasing with high thinning. Red mark trees are mature to be cut because their yield is lower than the given limit of interest rate. Green and yellow marked trees give good value growth and are valuable to be grown further. The value of cubic meter of wood depends on the diameter at breast height. Pulpwood trees are worth almost nothing, often not even covering the felling costs. They should be allowed to grow. Only log trees are worth selling. Even in an even-sized forest, CCF is started with high thinning. Regeneration starts on harvesting pathways and small openings. After 1 or 2 thinnings, the stand will be optimally uneven sized. If it is need to focus on logging income or speed up regeneration, small gaps or openings can be made. Harvesting ways should be directed to the densest tree groups and slightly widened them in some places. This is an example of a felling history of one CCF stand in the north. Only log trees have been removed. Logging interval has been about 15 to 20 years. Logging amount has been 50 to 80 cubic meters per hectare per time. CCF was used in northern Inari until 1975 very successfully. Some private forest owners have always used CCF for domestic needs. These forest stands have never been clear-cut. The location is north of the Arctic Circle. Logs have been used for constructing wooden buildings and log houses. Then growth and yield. "38 different studies show that the uneven-sized CCF stands have 10 to 30% better growth than the even-sized stands of rotation forests. Difference in economical profitability is even greater. The lower the growth, the more profitable the CCF is in the Arctic forest. It really makes sense to use only CCF, especially when you take into account the other uses of the forest. And biodiversity and damaging agents. Maintaining biodiversity is a central idea in CCF. The key features are admixture of tree species, diverse uneven-sized structure, natural regeneration by undergrowth, undisturbed interaction network of organisms, a small ecospace or niche for each organisms, no space for invading pests and other damaging agents. Biological control is always in order. The diversity of soil organisms is particularly important, especially the network of mycorrhiza fungi. It forms like the internet of trees. Decaying wood with different microbes is very important. Most of the threatened species require wood in a different states of decaying in a mixed forest. The old trees are gradually dying and microbes and other organisms start a long decaying process. This is threatened by clear cut. Since the effect of organisms on each other is either promoting, inhibiting, or indifferent, dynamic balance is maintained in the ecosystem. The level of biodiversity depends on the type and intensity of logging. The best one is the natural state and the worst clear cut. The network of nature conservation areas is very important for maintaining biodiversity. In northern Lapland, about 90% of land area is protected and owned by the state, those red-marked areas. Green-marked areas are state-owned land for multiple use, including fellings. It is an urgent need to protect all old-growth forests in Finland. CCF is a good method for creating ecological corridors between protected areas. In CCF stands blueberry thrives very well as food for numerous forest species. Many mammals, from bears to moles, as well as forest fowl and insects, use blueberry as food. Tits as insectivores are hard-working health nurses of the forest. Their population have collapsed as a result of the clear cut. Half of Finland's 250 breeding bird species are either near threatened or threatened. The tits need rotten bird stems for a nest hole and trees with thick bark and lichen for storing food. A CCF forest is also excellent for recreational use and for Siberian jay. From 1940, the Siberian jay population has collapsed to 1/3 in 1970 and further to 1/10 today. Ants play a role in reducing pests in the forest. After clear cut, ant nests are destroyed. An uneven-sized forest stand is best preserved in a forest fire. Young, even-sized plantation forest can be badly destroyed. Climate change is expected to increase wildlife activity. Even-sized young birch and pine stands are the most affected by snow damage. Uneven-sized CCF forests withstand it the best. Climate change is expected to increase snow damage. There are many common damaging agents in planted sapling stands because all have the same size and age range. Their genotype is remarkably narrow. It means the risk of damage. Problems in obtaining an effective mycorrhiza fungus because nursery conditions differ from the forest. However, good mycorrhiza is prerequisite for healthy development. Clear-cut areas are rich in nutrients, causing lush growth, which is favorable to rust fungi and many other diseases. Retention trees should be left nowadays in clear-cutting areas. Do they maintain the biodiversity of the forest? Clear-cut destroys the forest stand. The temperature, lighting, wind and humidity conditions change radically. The decayed wood continuum is missing. A large part of the soil organisms is lost. Most of the mycorrhiza fungi die in a couple of years. Strong decomposers win and the decomposition of organic matter is greatly enhanced. Carbon emissions and leaching of nutrients increases. Open field vegetation and other species take over the area and the food web changes. The benefit from the retention trees is really minimal. And then environment, climate impacts. The annual mean temperature is rising and growing season is getting longer. The change in vegetation zones means the transition of entire ecological communities. The speed of this transition is considerably slower than the pace of climate change. The various species have different reproductive, propagative and adaptive capacities, leaving them vulnerable to a variety of threats. Increasing annual variation in weather conditions and extremes challenge more species adaptation. Climate change can't be prevented, but the pace can be mitigated and its effects tempered by adaptive measures. Mitigation, increasing growing stock and carbon sinks, increasing the use of wood for construction and carpentry products, improving the carbon sequestration capacity of peatlands and other soils, adaptation, maintaining high biodiversity, continuous natural regeneration and selective based on rich genotype in uneven-aged forest stands. It means continuous adaptation in changing conditions with local seed provenance. The answer to these challenges is CCF and restoration of ditched peatlands. In CCF, the mean of stand volume as well as the carbon sink, i.e. the growth remains at a good level and the soil's carbon stock does not decrease in clear cut. Many benefits of the forest decline for a long time. Mineral soil with humus layer has about twice as much carbon stock as grown trees. Clear cut removes the tree carbon and also a large part of the carbon in the soil. In peatland, the carbon stock of the soil is more than fivefold. It decomposes gradually. It's important to control groundwater to a level of 30 centimeters with CCF. The carbon stock of an old forest is 2 to 6 times higher than in an average advanced stand and accumulates further over hundreds of years. Sustainable use of forests, some ideas about it. Clear cut causes a lot of harm to reindeer husbandry. The area of beard lichen forest is decreasing. Reindeer lichens are greatly reducing for a long period. Logging residues hinder digging and make movement difficult. The structure of snow cover becomes harder and digging becomes more difficult. In the real CCF, these disadvantages are minor. The requirements of sustainable use of forests are demanding and diverse. Ecological factors are the basis for everything. Then there are cultural demands like preserve landscapes, holy places, etc. Social demands such as the forest must be treated with methods that citizens accept. The use enables all kinds of activities in forests. In the operations must be financially profitable. CCF can fulfill these requirements. Then summary. Why to use continuous cover forestry? Caring for the forest landscape. The forest is kept as a forest. Maintaining the diversity of forest species. Keeping wood production at an acceptable and profitable level. Growing high quality wood. Nurturing a good environment. Prevent eutrophication and spoiling the waters, maintaining multiple use of forests and all ecosystem services, improving the use of forests in climate change mitigation and adaptation, improving resistance to damage and recovery. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yrjö. So, Yrjö, it's so that both restoration and continuous cover forestry are both ecologically very important. But what would you say that what can be considered an old forest in Lapland?
Yeah, actually there are large areas for nature conservation, but we really need all old growth stands left there because the nature there is so fragile and it's always too good for preventing all species to live. So especially we need more conservation areas in southern Finland, but actually there are so little really natural forests left in Finland everywhere.
So way too little. And now, audience, please make sure that you put up questions in the chat. If you have anything for Yrjö right now, please do that now. And if you have anything coming up later in the day, please use chat for those purposes. So Yrjö, you had an example of dying seedlings there. Is there a way to rescue that kind of difficult area where the seedlings have died many times over?
Yeah, actually it's really very, very difficult to recover those areas because it's very expensive to seed for instance birds there because they're urgent need to have good leaf litter and more humus material on the site. I think that it's really very important to stop seed tree cuttings on those areas which are very barren and acidic. There are actually quite large areas of such problematic sites, for instance in Savukoski, Salla, Eastern Inari, and so on. We must recognize those problematic areas and use only continuous cover forestry if it is need to cut.
Okay. I think we don't have any questions yet to Yrjö, but I still question one more thing. How do you see the climate future? How do you see the climate changing in the coming future?
Yeah, that's really a problem because the climate change is much more in the north. It's about twice so more than in southern Finland or in Central Europe. And it means that we really need continuous cover forestry and natural regeneration if we cut forests, especially in the Arctic areas. Because natural regeneration of the local trees means that there are really local provenance, and then if the regeneration rate is good, so the forest produce more and more seedlings for natural selection. This is the only process which can be good enough. However, there will be very, very big problems with climate change systems.
Yeah. So we should restore more. We should use continuous cover forestry as a kind of main line from this discussion, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and actually, those natural stands never cut are the best for climate change, because the biodiversity in those forests are the best, and we really need all natural trees left in forests and all organisms which are possible in those forests.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Yrjö. I think we need to move on to seeing how it goes in practice.